Hey, it's episode number 3 of How I Got This Gig. In this episode, I speak with video editor extraordinaire Jayson Chan about how he became an editor and then went on to become one of the industry's first Preditors. Do you know what a Preditor is? Well, stick around and you'll find out. Hello and welcome to How I Got This Gig, a podcast about how people got their start in media. Whether it be television, movies, newspapers, internet, we're going to be exploring all kinds of jobs, whether they're creative or technical. And the reason I thought this might be a good idea for a podcast is because when I first decided that I wanted to get into the media business, there was no clear path. I didn't quite know what to do. Do I go to film school? Do I try to join the union? Do I just go get a job? What's going to be the best route to take? And although my parents supported my decision to work in television, they felt powerless because breaking into the industry seemed like this big, impossible dream. Well, the truth is, it kind of is. But we're going to change all that right here with this podcast as we pull back the curtain and shine a spotlight on probably 101 ways to get into the business. And today, we're speaking with Jayson Chan. Jayson started as an editor and has gone on to become a producer and a creative director. But I want to focus on his experience as an editor because I think he has some really great insights for many of you out there who might be interested in becoming an editor. And as I teased off the top, he's going to talk about how the TV industry has changed with the introduction of Preditors. So stick around for that. As always, this podcast is brought to you by videotwins.com, where you can find tips, tricks, and resources to help you improve the quality of your video productions. And you know what happens when you improve the quality of your video productions? You get to charge more money. Yeah. Hey, this is a tough business, so any edge you can get on your competition is really going to help you in your bottom line. So if you're just a budding filmmaker, hobbyist, and you want to try to make some money at it, we've definitely got some tips and resources for you. But if you are an industry pro and you're wanting to move, maybe you're in a full-time job and you're wanting to go out on your own or start a production company, hey, we've been through it all. We've started production companies and we know a thing or two because of the mistakes we've made. And we're also offering help with that. So again, videotwins.com, Berman and I are there to answer all your questions. Okay, we're going to be talking to Jayson Chan today about being a video editor in just a few minutes, but I thought I'd share my thoughts because I have a bit of a background in video editing. And I must say that video editing has been crucial to my success as a director. There are two skills that I have developed that I think have helped me dramatically in my career in media. The first one is writing, or my ability to fight through the battles of which is the struggle of writing. Writing is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. But if you can write, you can create your own opportunities. You're not waiting for someone else with a concept or an idea or a script and waiting for them to bring you on. You're creating your own opportunities. You've got the script, you've got it. If you want to be a director but you don't write, it will probably take quite a while for you to catch a break. As you see, those, even in movies, the Paul Thomas Andersons, the Quentin Tarantinos, a lot of the auteurs, they write. But I think it's really key for you at any level, even if you're doing corporate videos or commercials, that you have ideas of your own and you can develop them and you can put them down on paper so that they can be communicated with other people. And that is just a great way for opportunities to come up. You're not waiting for anybody else. You're making your own opportunities. And in this business, that is key. That is so key because everybody else is looking out for themselves and you should be too. And they're always looking out for writers. Now, the ironic thing is writers are probably treated the worst in the industry, and I do not know why that is. I think because secretly those that can't write but have power resent those that can write. But in my mind, writers should be more celebrated than directors. But that's a whole other discussion on a whole other episode. In the meantime, okay, so writing has been big for me because I've been able to create my own opportunities by being able to write. But number two, what's helped me as a director and on set and getting things to work in my storytelling has been because I started out as an editor. And when I was in film school, I was pretty lucky because we did have a Steenbeck, so I did get to do some flatbed editing there with real film where you really touch it and you make those physical cuts. But then I also got to work on an Avid. It was the first Avid ever, I think. And it wasn't even really true digital because you would ingest the tape, the video, into the computer, but it would be very low res. And then on this timeline, you would make your edit and do your transitions, but then the computer would spew out a EDL, an edit decision list, and then you would take that floppy disk and you would go over to another system that ran like the tape machines together. You'd still have physical tape machines, but the computer did it all and made it all work, and then that's how it happened. Of course, the technology moved very quickly after that, and I was able to kind of ride that wave because I understood what was happening. I could conceptualize this non-linear digital editing, and so I found lots of work opportunities to just jump in there and work on some of these early platforms like Media 100 and the early Premiere, and I think Speed Razor was another one, all kinds of programs. So I became quite proficient at non-linear editing, and then I took the gig at CNN in Hong Kong, where, whoa, blow my mind, they were still using tape decks, tape to tape, Beta SP. It was digital, but it was still on tape. So, you're doing your edit and you were just praying that there weren't going to be any dropouts and ruining anything. And I was like, wow, why are we doing this with technology? But the reason they had to do tape to tape was because at that time, nonlinear editing still wasn't fast enough, if you can believe it. It took time to ingest all the tape, and that was like in real time because you had to play the tape, and if it was 20 minutes on that tape, it took 20 minutes to ingest it. And then after your edit was done, you would have to render, and that could be an hour or two. And there were times where, cameramen and producers were running back to the edit suites, and you had like an hour to crash edit a package that was going to be hot rolled live into the show. And oh my gosh, nothing was more stressful than that. I do not miss those days. Now, news can seem, not that creative sometimes. They're cut and dry. They're the facts. You've got your reporter, you've got your interviews, and then you've got your B-roll. Sometimes that changes. They add some music, and I'm not really for all of that stuff, adding some color grade and stuff, because I think it's like artificially manufacturing drama, and I don't think the news is a place to do that. But that's a whole other discussion in another episode as well. But I'll tell you one important thing that I learned. As much as I hated editing, news packages, super rushed, super stressed with like 4 or 5 tapes everywhere, one thing I really learned is important is your nat sound, your natural sound. I started editing these news packages, and when they were I was doing some test ones, and I cut the package together 2 minutes, and it's got the sound bites from the interviewees, it's got the stand-up from the reporter, it's got B-roll, I've got good sequences, and then my executive producer would say, "Ugh, where's your nat sound?" I was like, "What do you mean? I don't need nat sound. I got the story, I got the script here, it's all in the voiceover, it's all in the sound bites." It's like, no, you need the nat sound. The nat sound really brings the viewer into the scene. It really sets the mood. And I still think that is kind of being lost in a lot of video making out there. On the editing side, audio is important. Yes, you want clean interviews or clean dialogue. Yes, you want that music at a good level in your mix. But don't forget the sound that goes with your B-roll. Sometimes we'll recreate that. Even if we don't get good location sound, we will recreate that nat sound, quote unquote, because it is so important. It really can take your production to the next level. So I want to encourage all of you out there to put some extra thought into your nat sound, especially if you're cutting a visual sequence, and then you don't have to write some script for it. You could think, if writing is a struggle for you, that's how I cheat. I don't want to write something here. I don't want to put any voiceover. I don't want to put anything here. Let me just let the nat sound tell the story. And I especially love like if it's like cooking or, coffee being made or, a sequence of somebody making something and you hear the machinery and all of that, or an athlete, you got the breathing and the lace is going and all that. No, I love that. I love that stuff. And I just want to stress to everybody out there, don't forget about your nat sound. If you have any interest in editing, get into it. I mean, it's great because nowadays it's something you can do at home. You can do it on your iPhone, I guess. You can get iMovie on your iPhone. But really, if you want to be a director and you want to improve your directing skills while you're not directing, because nothing will give you more experience and improve your skills like directing, actually doing it, the second best thing is be in the edit room, making these shots cut together, and you'll learn pretty quickly what works and what doesn't. Okay, on to the interview with Jayson Chan. This interview is a little bit different because we recorded it outside, and we were originally going to use it as a video interview, so you'll hear me mention B-roll, talking about the B-roll. But there's no B-roll in this because ultimately we ended up going with an audio podcast because we just felt it would be more accessible to people. Now, I've known Jayson for a number of years, and he is one smart cookie. Not only does he understand the technical aspect of editing, but he's also well-versed in the language of cinema, and he understands the craft of great filmmaking. So I know you're going to really enjoy this one. Jayson, welcome to the show. Did I catch you? Did I scare you there?
Yeah, you scared me.
Coming out of the B-roll there?
You're going to do that again?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you totally freaked me out there.
I know, okay. Jayson, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Hey, you like my energy?
I love it.
Isn't that good?
It's
okay.
awesome, yeah.
So, thanks for taking the time to be here.
Not a problem.
Yeah. I know, a lot of people, they want to get into this business. They want to pick it up. Maybe they start off as a hobbyist or something, or some people go to school and all of that. But what I found is working in the industry is that there is no straight path to working in video or television or film production, right?
I would agree with you there.
How did you get into this business?
It was a very jagged path. It's a circuitous path that I wouldn't recommend that anyone take.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Should I go?
Yeah, start.
How far back should I go?
I like to go just to the cradle and then back it up a bit.
Okay, well, I was born in Toronto, Canada. And then I had a fairly normal childhood. And then went through the school system.
Yeah. Was there anything when you were young that was like you liked telling stories or you were drawn to movies or anything? Was there anything like that?
I loved movies when I was a kid. I loved telling stories via pictures. I drew a lot when I was a child. I don't know if they necessarily connect, but they probably do in some Jungian or Freudian way. I don't know. So yeah, I always sort of was a visual kid, I would say, but I also really liked music. I played a lot of music, so I guess I was sort of in the arts without being arty, maybe. Anyway, so I went through high school doing all that stuff. Had pretty good grades, but I decided to go left field and not become an engineer or an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor like everyone else I knew. And I enrolled in film school just out of a whim. And lo and behold, they accepted me and basically gave me a scholarship and paid me to go to film school.
Now, what film school did you go to?
I went to York U. I went to York University. Their production program. So I did that for 4 years, specializing on the film side rather than the video side. And this was before the nonlinear revolution, so I actually learned how to cut on film, which is sort of ridiculous when you think about it, because Avid was invented like the year before I graduated or something like that, right? So I learned to cut on film the old-fashioned way, graduated, realized that no one cuts on film anymore, because they didn't really tell me that in school. I think they tell people that in school now. When I was in school, they didn't tell people that. So I took a crash Avid course at Humber College. It was a couple weeks. It was maybe like a 4-week course or something like that. It was actually really good.
This is after you graduated?
This is after I graduated. I realized that no one was really hiring film cutters anymore. And I decided to just dive right into the nonlinear world because, you know, I do like computers and stuff. I'm not afraid of technology. So I went to Humber. I took a crash course in Avid. which was one of the only Avid certified courses in Canada at that time. I'm sure there's a lot now. Right after that, I got hired by a small commercial production company as an assistant editor.
Okay, let me back up a little bit
Yeah.
here. So, you're in film school, and they give you lots of opportunities. You're writing, you're directing, you're learning about lighting, and you're learning about editing.
Yeah.
So, your choice is kind of coming out. You might be a writer, you might be a director, an editor, DP. You chose editing. It sounds pretty. You were drawn to that.
Yeah, I was drawn to editing. When I first entered school, I thought I would go into cinematography, and I was not too bad in it, but I was drawn to editing. I can't explain why, but I just found that one, I liked the loneliness of the job. I really did.
Sitting in a booth by yourself.
Yeah, I actually liked sort of the lone wolf nature of being an editor, getting sort of your direction and taking that direction or ignoring that direction, whatever, but sitting in the room and just working hours and hours, crafting something that's, to be honest, when you get your rushes, generally they're just formless mush. Depends on the quality of your director, of course.
Okay,
right?
let's talk about what is a rush. What are the rushes?
When you get your raw shoot material.
Yeah.
Depending on your quality of your director, quite often it's just formless mush, to be polite. Sometimes it's brilliant. You get a whole range of things, of course, depending on who you're working with. But as an editor, it's just great to sort of take this kind of raw material and sculpt it into something interesting that actually makes sense and hopefully is compelling to the viewer.
I always find editing fascinating because so much of the process in the work you're doing is for later. You'll see the results later. When if you're a set designer or a builder, you'll see them later. You'll see the results later, you know. Or if you're directing, the results don't come until later. But the editing is like you're at the end of the process and you start to see everything coming together.
Well, I think you sort of hit it on the head there. You hit the nail on the head, excuse me. The one thing I really liked about editing, and it's sort of reflective in perhaps my personality, I'm a bit impatient, is I like the immediacy. I make a cut, I look at the cut, I know if it works or it doesn't work. Or, I put a scene together, for example, if I'm doing a fictional piece or something like that, I can run it back and I can tell immediately if it's working or not. If you're a DOP or whatever, especially now when you're shooting on video, you just kind of like make sure everything is exposed at you have a certain latitude or whatever in there. You don't really know if it's going to be amazing until after all the color correction, et cetera, et cetera. But as the editor, you can pretty much tell if it's working or not after you hit the button, and you immediately review your shot, if it's going to sing or not.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're doing a longer piece, you have to see it a few more times and maybe get opinion. But, to make a long story short, I do like the immediacy of being an editor and not having to sort of wait around. Hurry
up and wait.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, it's a big on-set saying.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of hurry up and wait. I just like, let's do it now and let's look at it ASAP. That's kind of my.
What's the workflow work like then? Because you're not a one-man band, obviously. You're at a level where you're part of a team.
Right.
As from the perspective of an editor, walk me through the workflow on a sort of a short video.
From an editor's perspective, I guess, obviously, depending on the scope of the project, sometimes the editor is consulted before stuff is even shot. So if there's going to be some specific VFX sequences or something that requires a little extra post-production work, perhaps the director or producer can consult with the post-production people, be it the editor, be it the VFX people, be it the compositors, whatever it happens to be, on how to shoot something the best way, the coverage they need, et cetera, et cetera. But if not, let's say the editor is brought in purely in a post role. The director would go out with his crew, the producer and the director would go with his crew, shoot whatever. Hopefully there's notes taken and there's a script with notes on it. All that will be given to the editor. The editor will obviously chat with the director to make sure he understands kind of the director's vision and the direction of the piece, because it's very easy to manipulate the footage and make a piece happy or sad just to make it simple, right? So we want to know sort of the vibe, the tone and feel that the director's going for. We look at the notes, we look at the rushes, and we basically do a first assembly. And I'm just giving you the sort of the Coles notes, right? We do a first assembly to make sure that kind of structurally the backbone is there. We're hitting all the beats, the act 1, 2, 3, whatever it happens to be is there. Once that's signed off on, and the director says this is the direction to go, you do a fine cut. You put in all the missing pieces, you get all your emotional beats, et cetera, and then, you know, that will go over revision after revision until the client, director, whoever happens to be the final say, let's say, is happy with the way the story is shaping. When it's picture locked, then we can go into color correction mode or online mode, you know, where the picture is sweetened. So the story is locked, the edits are locked, and now you're just working on every shot to make it look as good as possible from sort of an aesthetic point of view. So you can do the color correction, you can do the compositing, you can add your titles, your lower thirds, your supers, that kind of thing. After that, you go into sound mix it up, make it sound great, and then you're off to the races. And
In the olden days,
there
was like a ton of people that did all the work that
Right.
you said. You know, there might be an offline editor or an
Yeah.
assistant editor, then the senior editor, and then there'd be someone for color grading, and then there'd be somebody for sound mixing. What's it like today?
It's same but different. A lot of roles have been compressed into one. So maybe, for example, you'd have an offline editor and online editor. A lot of places, they're one and the same. So the person who does the offline cuts will also do the color correction and, you know, the rotoscoping or the compositing or the titles. It could all be handled by one sort of post-production specialist, right? They might actually do the sound mix in suite. So if you're editing on Premiere, let's say, or FCPX or whatever, they might actually do the final sound mix there, or they might export into another tool, let's say Audacity or Ableton or even Pro Tools, and just do it there. Or you could go to a sound specialist who just specializes in audio. It really depends on the scale of the project, who you're working for, and how you work yourself. So I know a lot of people who are one-man bands or one-person bands, men or women, doesn't matter. But I also have worked in workflows where it goes through every sort of step in sort of, you know, military precision. It really depends on the scope, budget, who you're working for, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you think there's any difference in the results?
Um,
To get a better spot? One way versus the other?
That's not a straight, I can't give a straightforward answer. At the end of the day, it really depends on the level of professionalism of your people. Whether it's a one-person band who's incredible at everything, or you have sort of the step-by-step and you have the best in the business all the way. So honestly, from a working perspective, there's no difference. It just comes down to the talent of the people doing it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely. Technology's played a huge role.
Absolutely.
You know, when I watch some of these classic films, you know, not too long ago, I don't want to date myself, but from the 70s and 80s, and think, man, this stuff was all cut on film. Like, I don't even know if our viewers, like, I can envision what it was like to do effects and
Yep.
cuts with actual physical film.
I
And,
miss
like,
those days.
There's no Apple Z, you know?
Yep. Every
Uh,
cut counts. You can't make a mistake, or else you're digging through the trash bin to find that frame you shouldn't have cut out, that you cut out. And I sort of miss those days of precision, absolute precision. Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of the craft then?
I mean, there are still great editors. They're still great. The great thing about this sort of technological revolution, for lack of a better term, is that it's democratized post-production. Anyone who has a couple bucks in their pocket can be an editor, which is great because there's a lot of people who have the potential and have the skill, but just didn't have the in to become an editor in the old-fashioned system, right? You know, their cousin's brother's uncle wasn't working for a studio that could get them in as an apprentice or something like that, right? So that's opened the doors for everybody to potentially be a great editor, but that's also opened up to the doors for everyone to just hack away at everything. So, I mean, there's good and bads for everything, you know what I mean? So, you know, at the end of the day, the strong survive.
Yeah.
And you know, Darwinism
It continues.
takes its toll.
Yeah.
And the people who are great will shine.
Yeah. No, I believe that as well. Okay, with your editor hat on, how do you feel about the term fix it in post? Because, you know, it's something that's thrown around on set an awful lot. And
Yeah.
when you're on set and you hit a wall, you're running out of time, you're running out of light, you're running out of whatever, or you don't know what decision, you just say, fix it in post and we'll deal with it then. But that must put an awful lot of pressure on the guy that lone wolf back in the booth there.
Yeah, and you know what? I say fix it in post a lot, but when I say fix it in post, I actually know it can be fixed in post.
Yeah.
The problem is when someone says fix it in post, they have no idea what can be fixed in post. One story I can tell you is, yes, one story I can tell you. It's an incredible story.
You can change the names to protect
I will say no names, but there was a producer who had shot something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was basically, you know, let's say it was a shot of a doorway, you know, a simple shot of a doorway. This producer went into edit and said, can we make the shot wider? You can't make the shot wider because it's been shot. You can't pull out and suddenly new stuff will appear.
Yeah.
So that's you know, that illustrates perfectly the fix it in post mentality where you actually don't understand post at all. Right?
Except for probably technology and money.
Yes.
CG could probably recreate the wall around.
Theoretically,
that,
you could fix that in post by rebuilding the entire house around it.
But your point is, you've been asked some pretty incredibly stupid asks.
Incredibly ridiculous asks. Yeah. But, you know, at some point you just kind of get it because not everybody understands the post process, and, you know, everyone needs to be educated the first time.
But it is comforting to know on set that so much can be done in post.
A lot can be done in post. It just, again, it really depends on the money you're willing to spend in post. So, for example, that ridiculous example of the doorway.
The shot, could the shot be wider?
The shot could have been wider. We could have rebuilt the entire house, but that would have probably been the entire budget of the whole shoot just to fix that one shot when they could have just zoomed out a bit on set.
So saying that then, are there any tips or tricks or things that people can keep in mind when they're filming that you know, that they can get some help with in post, or just instead of just yelling fix it in post, that, you know, things that they can look out for?
You know what? One thing I really believe in, and I think I'm actually quoting Michael Bay, but I'm sure he stole it from somebody else. But he always says shoot for the edit. And I'm a firm believer of shooting for the edit, meaning shoot knowing how you're going to use the shot.
Now that's so interesting, because to me the way he shoots is like he's overshooting. He's got steady cams going, he's got 20 cameras, and it's like, how do you direct that way to shoot for the edit when you are just massively overshooting everything?
That's why it surprised me that this quote came from Michael Bay. I expected this quote to come from like Hitchcock, who shot for the edit. He never shot anything extra because he didn't want the studios interfering with his edit, because he would just say, I don't have that shot.
Right.
I only shot exactly what I needed.
I storyboarded it, you approved the storyboards, that's what I shot,
Yes.
That's where we go. Because if you give options, then you get in.
Exactly. And Hitchcock was notoriously specific with his storyboards, and he loved the editing process, and he actually didn't enjoy the production process. He said the production process, and it's not an exact quote, but he thought it was just a means to an end. He was just shooting because he needed to shoot because it happened to be a movie.
Right.
But he loved making it in the editing suite.
Seemed to me he liked it on the page.
Yes.
And then he liked it on the editing.
Yes.
I kind of relate to that myself.
Yeah.
Because being on set, man, it's that hurry up and wait. It can be a drag.
Yeah.
It's like, very time consuming, and that to
Exactly.
stay focused. There's no immediacy. All the results you're going to see later. Yeah.
Exactly.
So back to editing, and then I want to move on to the next topic. But can you give us 3 general editing tips that you think would help people make better videos?
Editing tips. Editing tips. My 3 things are the same thing: organization, organization, organization. If you're not organized in your edit, it's an uphill battle, basically. Label all your clips, label all your bins, know where everything is. Just be organized. Coming from a film editor background, where you're physically hanging strips of film on the wall in an organized manner that obviously I created or whatever. If I lose a shot, I physically lost a shot and I don't know where it is, and a dog could have run off with it. I don't know. So I say organization is 50%, if not more, 50% if not more of the battle in editing is organization and knowing where everything is and cataloging where everything you need is. Because if you're, especially on a longer shoot, if you're shooting, a reality show, let's say, where you've got 8 cameras running at once, you have to know where everything is. And hopefully, either yourself or if you have the luxury of having assistants to sort of catalog stuff for you, that there's a system in place that you've created or whatever you've inherited where you can find everything you need. And that's my 3 tips, is that one word, is organization times 3.
Perfect, that's great. So you graduated from film school, York University. You took the Avid Editing Intensive course. I assume you were certified then?
That's correct, yeah.
Did you go right to work?
Sort of. I was hired as an assistant editor at a small commercial production house. So I would, do night shifts, I'd digitize, I would do assemblies, stuff like that. So the Avid skills definitely helped, because at that point in history, there weren't a lot of certified Avid operators.
And Avid was kind of the only nonlinear platform, kind of, at that time.
It was the big fish at that point.
Yeah.
It was like that and Lightworks.
Yeah, Media 100.
Media 100, but Avid was definitely the industry standard at that time.
Yeah.
And there weren't a lot of certified Avid people at that point. So just being certified was already, a foot in the door in a lot of places.
Sure. Because, you say your first gig you got paid?
First gig, I got paid, yeah. Not a lot, but I got paid.
That says something right there, yeah.
So I worked as an assistant editor for a while, and that was cool. I guess the break came when the main editor of the company decided to quit. He gave his 2 weeks notice, and basically it was trial by fire at that time, because they said, hey, this kid knows how to use the machine. Let's just throw him in the booth. Let's just throw him in the room. Let's see what happens. And that's exactly what happened. I was just thrown into the fire, which I think is the best way of learning, is by just being thrown into the trenches and not being coddled. So I had about a week of training.
Yeah.
So I knew how everything worked from a workflow perspective.
Pushing the buttons,
plugging in the patch bay,
yeah.
understanding the Tascam 88.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The audio recording device that physically used tapes and had 8 tracks. So I was just thrown into that environment. Then, within a few days, I had agencies and clients sitting behind me barking out orders. As I offlined and onlined their commercials.
Wow.
So there's no sort of room to contemplate life decisions or whatever. I just did it. And I think that's honestly the best way to do things, is don't think about it, just do it and see what happens.
Sink or swim.
Sink or swim. That's it. And that's what life should be about, sink or swim.
Yeah, because at this point, you were really green, right?
I was very green.
You had your education, and then you got you learned what buttons, but like we've talked, there's a craft to this.
There's a craft to this.
Beats, pacing, all of that, and all of a sudden...
Absolutely. And then in the commercial world, there's also, beyond that, there's a lot of politics with how you do with clients, how you do with talent, and stuff like that. And I was just some kid right out of school and was just, I had the fire in my belly, and I just did it. And I developed my own style of working that was probably not what a lot of other people are used to. And I had a way of dealing with clients that I think they appreciated, because I was very straightforward and I told them the truth and I tried to meet their deadlines. But I think people appreciate when you don't lie to them or jerk them around or make them feel good.
Yeah.
If you tell them the truth and you work with them, as well as for them, obviously, but if you work with them, I think they appreciate you more.
Yeah.
You're a partner with them rather than just kind of being like, anything you say, sir.
Yeah, sometimes they don't take that you're looking out for them.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I think they get it and they really appreciate
Yeah,
it. You may at first be like, well, this guy's resisting or he's pushing back or whatever. But it's like, well, wait a minute. It's in my best interest here.
Absolutely.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Great. So then you just, what did you do there? Did you just settle in and be an editor for the rest of your life?
Well, I worked in the commercial production house for about 3-ish years or so. And then after that, I got a break. One of the directors I worked for, who was shooting a commercial, he ended up directing a TV series for kids. That is long gone and forgotten, so I won't mention it. But he was working.
I can probably find it online.
You could probably find it online. But he was working for a broadcast company. And the editor that he was working with at that time wasn't working out for him with the style that he wanted, with kind of just the work pace that he was used to, because he came from the commercial world. He wanted to bring that to the television series. And as you know, TV series and the commercial series work and commercial work, two different kind of paces.
Yeah.
He was used to the commercial pace. He wanted that style of editor. So he asked me to join his team. So I did the series. Loved working with him. Everyone loved working with me, thank goodness, or whatever. And then that pretty much brought me into the TV series world, or working for television broadcasters. So I left the commercial world behind, the hectic, crazy client agency world, which it's a hard world because the hours are long and it's quite grueling and very demanding. And I went into the broadcast world, which is different. The pacing is different. So I worked on TV series and all that kind of stuff for a major broadcaster for
You could say who it is.
I won't.
You won't?
No.
Well, they'll see it in the B-roll.
They can, but they won't know.
So you like that adjustment then?
Mm-hmm.
The life and the work, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just was less psychologically taxing than working in the commercial industry. Because commercial industry it's full on.
The pressure's there.
The pressure is very much there, very much there. When you've got, when you're the one editor working on a project and you've got 8 agency people, you've got the copywriter, the creative director, the art director, and then a bunch of people from their clients. So if they're working for whatever, they're selling, client X, IKEA, whatever.
Yeah.
Then they've got people from IKEA or whoever their client is in the room as well, and everyone has an opinion.
A lot of chefs in the kitchen.
A lot of chefs in the kitchen.
How do you manage that?
You just do. There's a lot of ways of doing it, and everyone has a different way. I had my own.
Have you got a trick? Because I got a trick I would share.
You share your trick, I'll share my trick.
So when I was working for commercials and I'd have to send a rough cut, because I was an editor-director, right? Mm-hmm. So and I did quite a bit of editing. I would always leave one glaring, obvious mistake in the cut, so that their attention was drawn there and they would change that and not fiddle with too many other things.
Yes. That's. I think I was taught that as the blue boat theory.
What they call that?
Yeah. You make a painting and just throw a blue boat in there because they'll ask you to remove the blue boat and they'll forget about everything.
And you
else.
get what you want.
Yeah. No, that's a great trick, and that's one of my tricks as well. Another trick is to just, as you're an editor, turn off the client monitor, and then turn it on when you want to see them. So they're not seeing every little thing move and worrying about everything.
Because it's tough, because they're sitting right over your shoulder.
Exactly.
And sometimes you've got to do a few things before you get that result and everything. And I can see that.
So if there's one recommendation, if you're working with clients, is have a monitor specifically for them to look at, as opposed to them perched over your shoulder looking at your screen. Therefore, you can control exactly what they see on the client monitor. So you can turn the monitor off and turn it on only when it's ready for them to see, and you don't want them to see the journey to the destination. Just show them the destination.
Right.
Because when they see the journey, they're gonna hum and haw over everything.
It's messy, maybe.
It is.
Like,
Because everyone works differently.
Yeah.
Some people might take 5 steps to get the conclusion. Some people might take 2 steps to get the conclusion. Don't show them those steps. Just show them the conclusion, and then go from there.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my trick. That's a cleaned up version of my trick. My actual trick is a lot dirtier.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. So working at a broadcaster now, so
Yeah.
you haven't really been freelance at all during this point. You've been hired full time basically for a production company,
Yes.
broadcaster.
Yes.
How did you make the leap from editor to producer?
Okay, so that is an interesting story unto itself because I was hired as a show editor, and I loved cutting shows. I loved sort of longer format, 30-minute shows, whatever. But in 2001, 9/11 happened. Of course, 9/11, terrible. It also decimated the industry. So all the budgets dried up for shows. So there's basically no shows for me to cut. So what was I tasked to do? I was asked to edit promos. At that point, I didn't even know what a promo was because I was a commercial editor, I was a series editor. What's a promo? What's a promo? What a promo is essentially it's a commercial for programming. It's a commercial for shows on those channels that the broadcasters owned. I didn't know that, so I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. So I started editing promos, completely not knowing, because editing promos is different from cutting commercials.
Well, that was my question. Yeah, if they're similar, but they're not.
They're same but different.
Yeah.
Again, hard to explain why because it's a very long story. I would love to have illustrations and stuff like that, but structurally they're different. Your call to actions are different. You're very often working with show footage rather than raw footage off camera. You're working with show footage. So you're watching, episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants. And from those pre-cut episodes, you're choosing shots in order to tell a story, a 30-second story that attracts people to watch the show. That's what a promo is in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, I didn't know what a promo was. Producers sort of walked me through it. I sort of got the rhythms, I got the formula, and there's the very specific promo theory, and I started developing through that. I understood sort of the pacing, the rhythms, et cetera, and that's a course unto itself.
Yeah.
So I thought I was doing pretty good as a promo editor. How did I transition into becoming a promo producer? That's interesting because at some point, some producers would come in perhaps not so prepared, and I would say, don't worry about it, just give what you have to me and I'll fix it. And at some times I would end up rewriting the promos, rebuilding the whole ending, so it was a little more dynamic, different, better, whatever. So some people found out I was doing this, and a position opened up. They asked me, hey, do you want to be a producer since you're essentially kind of doing this already? And I said, yeah, I'd love to produce as long as I can cut what I'm producing. At that point in history, and we're talking, this is ancient history, producers were writers, editors were editors.
Yeah.
And between, they never met up. So then I basically became one of the early Preditors. Preditor is producer / editor.
So I have you to blame for having to do 2 roles but get 1 paycheck.
No, you don't have me to blame. Other people did it before me, but I think where I was working, I was probably the first.
Yeah.
The first, and I loved it. I loved it having full control
Sure.
over the creative, right?
Absolutely.
Because as you know from my earlier chat, I don't have a lot of patience, and I like control.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I became a producer, a promo producer in essence, and that's how I became a producer. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess you got tired of Toronto, wanted to go off and see the world, you moved to Hong Kong?
That's a long story made very short, but I was invited by the creative director of National Geographic Channel Asia, based in Hong Kong, to move to Hong Kong and work as a producer there. I said, yeah, why not? Why not? I thought I'd be there for 9 months to a year. I ended up staying in Hong Kong for just over 7 years. So I worked at National Geographic Channel as a producer for a while and introduced the producer-editor system over there because they didn't have that.
Wow, I bet you they love that.
They actually loved it. They loved it because nobody lost any jobs. The producers still had their jobs as onliners, color correctors, and finishers. But me as a producer, I just loved being able to handle my own stuff and be able to do, perhaps 2 jobs in parallel. One job I would edit myself, one job I would have the other editor work on.
Yeah.
So I worked at Nat Geo for a couple of years. They got bought out by Fox, international. So I worked for Fox for a couple of years, launching all their channels, helping launch all their channels, excuse me, it wasn't me alone, of course, helping launch all their channels across Asia. It was sort of the first foray of Fox internationally at that time in history. After that, I worked as an associate creative director for Turner Broadcasting International, still out of Hong Kong, where I worked on brand development for the business development team and on-air promotions.
So that brings us to the interesting part that I want to be. Creative director is a term thrown around quite a bit there. What exactly is the role of a creative director, would you say?
A creative director is exactly the combination of those two words. They direct creatively. So they may not do things hands-on as a producer / editor would, or they might. Like myself as an associate creative director at Turner, I still got my hands very dirty. Yeah. I still would edit my own stuff, shoot, direct, etc. I would still be sort of a one-person band if needed. But sort of on a larger scale, a creative director gives creative direction to the people who need to execute. How else can I say this? They basically, nudge creative people in the right direction, to put it very simply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a senior position, obviously.
Yes.
Because it seems like it would be one that needs to come with a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand the brand
Absolutely.
that you're dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah. So looking back at your career now,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to a young person who's looking to go into the business? This is going to be a two-part question.
Mm-hmm. I would say learn as much as you can while you still can. When you have the time to learn everything. Learn every piece of software. Learn every job role if possible. Just learn as much so you become indispensable. That's my number one tip to anyone entering the industry or who wants to enter the industry. Don't pigeonhole yourself right away. Don't say, oh, I only want to be a whatever. I only want to be an editor.
Right.
I only want to be a writer.
That's the good old days used to be like
Yeah,
that, right?
I mean,
It's not.
Yeah, the days of wine and roses and unions, it's not quite the same anymore, right?
Yeah.
The more flexible you are, the more indispensable you are, the better you're able to handle anything.
Okay, second part of the question. What would you say to someone who's maybe older or further along a different season in life and looking for a career change and has maybe gotten into cameras and stuff like that? You know how technology has made things more accessible and they're looking to make a move into this. What would your advice be to them?
I would say it's the same thing. I would say it's learn as much as you can. However much spare time you have, depending on what you want to do and how serious you want to take the profession, learn everything. Don't be scared of technology, because that's the instant death knell. As soon as you're afraid of technology, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Jayson, this has been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for joining us.
That was a sad ending. Maybe I should spin it a little.
What would your advice to them be?
My advice would be more or less the same thing as to a younger person just starting their career, is learn as much as you can, read as much as you can, learn about technology, learn about gear, learn about the craft. It's easy to pick up a manual and learn a camera, not that hard, but to understand the craft of what you're doing. So read, great books by great editors, great books by directors, watch a lot of films, read a lot of, great authors. Just absorb as much as you can, because when you have all that, you just become more creative. More ideas come to you, right?
And you're able to step up like you did when an opportunity presents itself to reach outside of your
Absolutely.
usual
Never sort of settle in a comfort zone, I find. It's don't be afraid. I think maybe that's probably the number one tip for everybody, is just don't be afraid. Just do it, right? Because weird things happen in life where you're given crazy opportunities and you either hum and haw and you don't do it and you miss out and then you regret, or you just do it.
Yeah.
I say just do it. Just
Awesome.
go for it.
Awesome. Well, Jayson, on that note, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming by and having a chat with us.
That was great. Absolutely.
All right, great stuff there from Jayson Chan. I always enjoyed chatting with him. He's got a great balance of the artistic and the intelligent aspects of, well, the craft of filmmaking and commercial making and promo making. Okay, so in keeping with our format, here is your film term of the day, the martini. Do you know what that means? The martini. You'll hear it on set near the end of the day, coming across the walkie-talkies, or people will be whispering it around the craft service table. We're on the martini, we're on the martini. It means the last shot of the day. It means everybody is almost out of there. So that does it for me, and I am out of here. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you tune in to the next episode of How I Got This